There's a place where people disappear. Not in movies, not in stories, in real life. Right now, as you watch this video, someone somewhere is being taken. They don't know where they're going. Their families don't know where they are. Welcome to the hidden world of China's secret prison system. What you're about to hear might shock you. It might scare you. But every word of it is true. If you want to uncover more mysteries like this, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment telling us. Did you know about these secret prisons before watching this video? Let me tell you about Unflinching. He was a normal man who wanted to help people. One day, men in dark clothes came to his house. They put a black bag over his head. When the bag came off, he was in a room with no windows. No one told him where he was. No one told him why he was there. He stayed in that room for 4 years. Chen isn't alone. There are thousands of stories like his. Maybe even millions. Nobody knows the exact number because China keeps it secret. You see, in China, there are prisons everyone knows about. Regular prisons with walls and guards and rules. But then there are the other places. The places that don't appear on any map. The places where normal laws don't apply. The places where you can vanish without a trace. They have different names. Some people call them black jails. Others call them transformation centers. The official name is RSDL, which stands for Residential Surveillance at a Designated Location. That sounds boring and official, right? Like a hotel or something. It's not a hotel. Imagine this. You're walking down the street in Beijing or Shanghai. Maybe you're going to work, maybe you're buying groceries. Suddenly, a van pulls up beside you. Men jump out. They grab you. They push you inside. The van drives away. No arrest warrant. No phone call to your family. No lawyer. Nothing. Where are they taking you? Sometimes it's an abandoned building on the edge of the city. Sometimes it's a hotel that's been cleared of all other guests. Sometimes it's a basement that officially doesn't exist. The location changes, but the experience is always the same. You're alone. Let me tell you about Wang Quanzhong. He was a lawyer who helped people who couldn't afford legal help. One summer day in 2015, he left his apartment in Beijing. His wife was making dinner. She expected him back in an hour. She didn't see him again for 4.5 years. When Wang finally came home, he was different. His hair had turned gray. He walked slowly, like an old man, even though he was only in his 40s. He didn't talk much about where he'd been. But sometimes, late at night, he would wake up screaming. His wife asked him once, "What did they do to you?" He looked at her with empty eyes and said, "You don't want to know. But we need to know. Because this isn't happening to one person or 10 people. It's happening to thousands." Here's what makes these secret prisons so scary. They exist in a legal gray area. Chinese law says that police can hold someone for up to 6 months in RSDL without charging them with a crime. 6 months. And during those 6 months, no one can visit you. Not your family. Not a lawyer. Nobody. And 6 months can easily become longer. Much longer. Why? So you can't hurt yourself. The lights stay on 24 hours a day. Why? So you never know if it's day or night. You lose track of time. 1 week feels like 1 month. 1 month feels like 1 year. The guards watch you constantly. There are cameras in every corner. Even in the bathroom. You have zero privacy, zero peace, zero escape. But here's the really clever part, and this is where it gets truly dark. The Chinese government can say, "We're not torturing anyone. We're not hurting anyone. We're just watching them." But watching someone every second of every day is torture. Your brain needs privacy. It needs rest. It needs darkness and quiet. When you take that away, a person starts to break. Not in 1 day, not in 1 week, but slowly, piece by piece, their mind falls apart. And that's exactly the point. You might be wondering, who ends up in these places? What did they do? That's the terrifying part. Sometimes they're lawyers like Wang Quanzhong. Sometimes they're journalists who wrote articles the government didn't like. Sometimes they're religious people. Sometimes they're just ordinary citizens who complained about corruption or pollution or unfair treatment. One woman was taken because she posted something on social media about wanting more freedom. One man was taken because he organized a small group that studied books the government banned. In other words, anyone can disappear. People in China call it the 2 designations. The first designation is where you're held, the secret location. The second designation is what they want you to become, a different person. Someone who thinks what they want you to think. Someone who says what they want you to say. It's a system designed to erase you and replace you with Imagine your life stripped of all choice. Every day follows a strict, unchangeable pattern. You wake up when you're told. You sit when you're told. And in between, you attend mandatory classes. But these aren't ordinary classes. They're political education sessions. You eat when you're told. Officials drill into you that certain thoughts, certain beliefs, are harmful to society. That some of your actions go against the country's interests. You're forced to memorize and recite these lessons over and over again. At first, most people just go through the motions to avoid trouble. But imagine the psychological toll after weeks, or even months, of this relentless repetition. It's a powerful form of coercive persuasion. Still, some resist. They keep their true thoughts locked away, saying what's required on the outside, while holding on to who they are on the inside. The authorities are watching, though. They can often tell who has truly accepted the indoctrination and who is just pretending. And for those who are just pretending, life gets much, much harder. Consider the story of Unflinching, a human rights lawyer. In 2018, he vanished. His wife, desperate for answers, tried everything. She called police stations, courts, government offices. But someone always knows. Months later, she received a letter in her husband's handwriting, but the words felt foreign. It said he was fine, studying important topics, and that she shouldn't worry. Of course, that letter made her worry more than ever. What many people don't realize is that China has used secret detention systems for decades. But recently, they've become more organized and systematic. In 2013, the government officially added something called RSDL, or residential surveillance at a designated location, into their criminal law. They essentially legalized a secret system. The law states RSDL should only be for special cases involving national security or terrorism. But here's the catch. The government gets to decide what those terms mean. A peaceful protest? That could be labeled a threat to stability. A critical blog post? That might be seen as endangering national security. The definitions are so flexible, they can be stretched to fit almost anyone. Now, let's talk about a place that makes even these secret facilities seem small. A place where the scale of detention is almost impossible to comprehend. I'm talking about Xinjiang, a region in western China, home to the Uyghurs, a predominantly Muslim people with their own language and culture. Citing concerns about separatism and extremism, the government has sought to assert tight control over the region. They started building massive detention facilities. At first, the government denied their existence, calling the reports misinformation. But then came the satellite images, revealing huge, secure compounds appearing across the region. Former detainees who managed to escape started to share their stories. Eventually, the government changed its tune. They admitted the facilities existed but reframed them. These aren't prisons, they claimed. They are vocational training centers, providing job skills and fighting extremism. But do vocational schools need high walls, watchtowers, and heavy security? Researchers and human rights groups estimate that between 2017 and 2019, over 1 million Uyghurs were held in these facilities. 1 million people. That's like detaining the entire population of a major city like San Jose, California. Inside, the routine is rigid. Detainees line up for roll call, sing patriotic songs, and attend classes on Chinese language and political ideology. This isn't just education. It's cultural suppression on an industrial scale. The goal appears to be the systematic dismantling of a people's identity, their language, and their faith. It's a chilling reality happening right now, in the 21st century. The Uyghurs have their own language, their own culture, their own traditions. It's a way of life that goes back thousands of years. But inside China's re-education camps, all of that is treated as something dangerous, something to be erased. Former detainees who escaped describe being punished just for speaking Uyghur instead of Chinese. They were forced to eat pork, which their religion forbids, and to publicly denounce their faith. Miragul Tursun, a young mother of 3, spent months in one of these camps. When she was finally released, one of her babies had died. The authorities said it was from natural causes, but she saw bruises and marks that didn't make sense. When she asked questions, they arrested her again. This time was worse. She describes being strapped into a chair for hours, interrogated about her religion, and locked in a cell with 60 other women, with barely enough room to sleep. The psychological toll was immense. Some women stopped speaking entirely. What makes this even more complex is that not everyone working in these facilities is cruel. Some are just doing a job, following orders to feed their families. The system is designed so that individuals don't have to make big moral decisions. They just follow rules created by someone else. It's easier to do terrible things when you're just following the rules. In recent years, many of the large camps have closed down, largely due to international pressure. Companies stopped buying products from Xinjiang over forced labor concerns, and countries imposed sanctions. But the control didn't disappear, it just changed form. Instead of camps, there's now a different system: pervasive surveillance. Cameras with facial recognition on every corner, phone apps tracking your every move, and constant police checkpoints. The camps got smaller, but the control got stronger. Now, let's shift to something even darker: executions. Every country handles punishment differently. In the United States, some states still have the death penalty, though it's used less often. In Europe, it's almost entirely gone. But China? China executes more people than the rest of the world combined. The exact number is a state secret, but human rights organizations estimate it's in the thousands every year, possibly even 10,000. That's like wiping out a small town every single year. The crimes that can lead to execution in China go beyond murder. They include drug trafficking, corruption, and even some economic crimes. And the process can be terrifyingly fast. You could be arrested in January, tried in March, and executed in May, leaving little time for appeals. Consider the case of Li Yan, who killed her abusive husband after years of horrific violence. Despite evidence of his abuse, the court focused on the fact she planned the killing and sentenced her to death. She was executed despite international campaigns to save her. For a long time, China used firing squads. The condemned would be forced to kneel before a soldier shot them in the back of the head. In the 2000s, they switched to lethal injection, which seemed more modern. But this led to something truly strange: mobile execution vans. These look like regular police vehicles on the outside, but inside, they're equipped to carry out executions. They can park anywhere, making death feel routine and efficient. It's a terrifying concept. The timing of executions is also chilling. Many happen right before major holidays or political events. It's a strategy known as killing the chicken to scare the monkeys, executing a few to frighten everyone else into obedience. Families often aren't notified until after the execution is over. And then there's the question of what happens to the bodies. They just get a call to come pick up the ashes. For decades, there have been strong allegations that China harvests organs from executed prisoners. Think about it. How can a hospital promise a wealthy patient a heart transplant on a specific date? Hearts don't become available on a predictable schedule from natural deaths, but they do from scheduled executions. China's organ transplant numbers exploded in the early 2000s, despite having no organized donation system. Waiting times were just weeks, compared to years in other countries. The Chinese government denied this for years, then admitted some organs came from prisoners with consent, and finally claimed they stopped the practice in 2015. But many investigators remain skeptical. What do you think about these systems of justice? Drop a comment below. And if you're learning something new, don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening content like this. Thanks for watching. Despite the official denials, the numbers just don't add up. We're still hearing disturbing reports of prisoners undergoing unusual blood tests and extensive medical exams, the kind you'd need to match organs for a transplant. One Falun Gong practitioner recounted how guards took his blood samples repeatedly. They tested his kidneys, his liver, his heart. Why would they be so concerned with the health of a prisoner they intended to keep locked up for years? The only logical, though horrifying, explanation is that they were keeping him healthy for another purpose. The thought is almost too dark to comprehend. Are people being kept alive, their bodies maintained in peak condition, just until their organs are needed? Are executions being scheduled not around legal proceedings, but around surgery times? While we lack a smoking gun, we have a chilling pattern of coincidences. We have too many testimonies, too many stories, all pointing in the same terrifying direction. It's a puzzle where the pieces fit together to form a picture of unimaginable cruelty. Let's shift our focus to the final hours before an execution, because even in these moments of ultimate despair, flashes of humanity sometimes break through. In Chinese prisons, a condemned individual is moved to a special, heavily monitored cell. Guards check on them every few minutes. This isn't out of concern for their well-being, but to prevent them from taking their own life. The state wants to ensure the execution proceeds exactly as planned. In a strange twist of empathy, fellow inmates often step in to offer comfort. They bring the condemned person food. They might help them eat if their hands are shaking too much from fear to hold chopsticks. They sit with them, sharing stories about ordinary things, family, memories, a favorite meal from childhood. This small act of connection in the face of death is profoundly moving. It's a reminder that even in the harshest environments, our shared humanity can persist. There's a tradition of a final meal, though it's far less formal than what you might see in Western countries. The condemned person can often request a special dish, something that reminds them of home, a taste of a life they are about to lose forever. One man asked for dumplings. Another wanted a simple bowl of noodles with pork. A woman requested sweet rice cakes, a treat from her youth. These simple meals become incredibly significant. They represent the last taste of life, the last connection to happy memories, the last moment of normalcy before the end. Many prisoners use their final hours to write letters. Letters to their family, filled with apologies, expressions of love, and all the words left unsaid for years. Tragically, many of these final messages never reach their destination. The prison authorities might censor them or simply discard them, a final act of control. Others turn to faith. Buddhist prisoners might chant sutras, Muslims face towards Mecca, and Christians recite psalms. It's common for even lifelong atheists to seek some form of spiritual solace in those final, terrifying moments. It's a search for meaning, for peace, at the very edge of existence. These stories, both the horrific and the humane, paint a complex and deeply troubling picture of justice and punishment. They force us to confront uncomfortable questions about what happens behind closed doors and the value we place on human life. What happens in China doesn't stay in China. But there's also a counter-movement. Privacy advocates and technology experts are developing tools to protect people from surveillance. Encrypted messaging apps, VPNs, ways to communicate safely even under watchful eyes. It's a constant race, control versus freedom, surveillance versus privacy. The outcome isn't predetermined. It depends on the choices people make, in China and around the world. Let me tell you one final story. It's about a prisoner named Liu Xiaobo. He was a writer and activist who spent much of his adult life in and out of Chinese prisons. His crime? Words. He wrote essays calling for more freedom and democracy. In 2009, he was sentenced to 11 years in prison for inciting subversion. While he was locked up, the Nobel Committee awarded him the Nobel Peace Prize. The Chinese government was furious. They put Liu's wife under house arrest. At the Nobel ceremony in Oslo, Liu's chair sat empty. His prize sat on the empty chair. It was one of the most powerful images of that year, an empty chair representing a voice that couldn't be silenced, even by prison walls. Liu Xiaobo died in 2017. He had developed liver cancer, but the government refused to let him travel abroad for treatment. They kept him under guard until the very end. He was 61 years old. His last words to his wife were, "Live well." Even in his final moments, he was thinking of her freedom, not his own suffering. Liu's story is tragic, but it's also inspiring. Because he knew the risks. He knew what speaking out would cost him, and he did it anyway. Not because he thought he would win, but because staying silent was worse than any prison. There are hundreds of people like Liu still locked up in China today. We don't know all their names or all their stories. Many will never be famous. But each one matters. Each one is a person with dreams and families and hopes. Each one deserves to be remembered. The secret prisons of China aren't just buildings and procedures. These systems exist because most people don't know about them, or they feel powerless to do anything. But knowledge is the first step. Now you know. You know about the black jails, the transformation camps, the disappeared lawyers and activists. You know about Chen Guangqing, Wang Quanzhong, Marigold Tursun, and Liu Xiaobo. You know their names. And names are powerful. Because once you know someone's name, they're not just a statistic. They're real. What you do with this knowledge is up to you. Maybe you share this information with others. Maybe you support organizations that help prisoners of conscience. Maybe you just remember. Because memory is resistance against systems that want people to forget. The cameras are still watching in China. The prisons are still there. But so is resistance. So is courage. So are people refusing to give up hope. And as long as people keep telling these stories, keep saying the names, and keep shining a light into dark places, the system doesn't have complete control. The secret prisons of China aren't secret anymore. The world is watching now. And that changes everything. This has been a difficult journey through one of the darkest corners of the modern world. But it's important that we took this journey together, that we didn't look away. If this video opened your eyes, please subscribe to this channel. We create content that matters, that reveals truths that need to be told. And share this video. Let others know what's happening, because awareness is the first step toward change. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Remember the names. Remember the stories. And never forget that somewhere, right now, someone is hoping that people like you won't forget them.